So today we're going to be making a pretty easy picture frame. Now, when you go to the big box store, they actually have molding in the molding area. They have picture frame wood, which actually has the 1/4 inch groove cut out of it. I didn't like what they had, so I just picked a piece of regular molding and using my router and a fence, I went ahead and ripped myself my own 1/4 inch groove down the length of this piece. Now for this build, we're going to be using the assistance of our spline jig. If you have a spline jig, that's great. Go ahead and use it. If you don't, I will link the video so you can make one. This is a really quick and easy project. And when it comes to making frames, it's really a necessity. So with that said, let's get dirty. All right, so we're going to cut a 45-degree angle here. Now, we're going to start with the piece, the decorative side up, okay? So let's go ahead and make that cut real quick. So now that we have this piece cut off, we need to save it because this piece is going to be important. We're actually going to be using this piece on our stopper so we can line everything up properly. All right, so the frame I'm making, I'm going to make an 8x10. So I've got my combination square here set at 8 inches. Now I want to use that groove as my measurement line. So I'm going to line that up and then I'm going to make a mark. Okay, so that's my 8-inch mark right there. Now when I set up my combination square, I actually kind of set it at 8 and about a 16th, maybe a little more. That just gives me a little play room. All right, so I cut my first piece with the decoration up. Now I'm going to cut the next piece by flipping it over. And that's where this piece is going to come into play. So I'm going to line it up. So now that I have the 8-inch mark all lined up on the saw, now I'm going to use this piece and clamp it down for my stopper. Okay, so that gives me a perfect 45-degree stop point for this piece that I'm getting ready to cut. All right, so there we go. Perfect 8-inch cut. Now I can just flip this over. Okay, now I gotta cut this corner off right here. And then I can flip it over, line it up. So there we go. 2 perfect 8-inch pieces. Now I just got to set it up so I can cut the 10-inch pieces. All right, so now I'm going to use the assistance of my 90-degree clamps. And I'm going to just start by putting a bead of glue here. Now I don't want this glue too thick. So with the extra, I'll just add it onto the other piece. Add a little more. Now I'm only gluing up one side here. So I'm just for my purpose, I'm just gluing up the tops. All right, now when working with these, what you want to do is you want to get it lined up, and then you just want to kind of slide the other piece down just a little bit more. And that way, when you tighten up the other side, it actually puts some pressure on it. Now just repeat the same process for all 4 corners. As you tighten it up, kind of feel on the underside to make sure that you're perfectly flush. All right, so now that you have it in the clamps, get yourself a moist rag and just get any glue squeeze out you can here on the top. Once it dries, it's a bugger to get rid of. So get rid of as much of it as you possibly can. All right, once you have the clamps on, set this aside, let it dry, and we'll come back and throw some splines in it. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut the glass for my frame. Now, this isn't really glass. It's actually an acrylic. So I'm going to use the table saw, and I'm going to cut an 8x10 piece for my picture frame. And while I have this set, I'm going to cut my 8x10 piece for the back of the frame to hold the picture in. Now I'm using about an 1/8 sheet of plywood. You can use hardboard, you can use cardboard. It doesn't matter. Just make sure it's a pretty solid piece, and it's about 1/8 of an inch, because remember, we only have a 1/4-inch groove cut into our frame. So I'm going to do the 8-inch cut on this one, then set up for the 10-inch cut. Okay, our frame is dry. We can go ahead and remove the clamps. So I'll do a quick dry test just to see if it fits, and it does. So we can take this back out, and now we got to put the splines in it. All right, going to run it through for its first pass. All right, so I have some spline material here, and need to get it just a little bit wider. So I'm going to increase the size by 1 playing card each time to find out exactly where I need this. Okay, so it's 2 playing cards to get this to fit perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and run it through all the rest of the splines on the original size and then add the playing cards to it. All right, it's coming together. So we'll just throw a little bit of glue on both sides here. And then insert our spline. Okay, you can throw a couple clamps on. Now with the clamps, you're not trying to really squeeze them in there. You're just basically holding them into place. So if your splines fit in there perfectly, all we're doing is just putting the clamps on, just basically to hold them into place while they dry. All right, so the splines are dry. So now I got to cut them. So I'm going to use my flush cut saw, and I took the Joker playing card, and I made a super technical cut here that will fit right onto that spline. So when I'm doing my cut, I'm not roughing up the frame itself. So I'm going to take it over, get all these cut flush trim, and I'll be right back. Okay, so my flush cuts are done. Now I just need to sand them nice and smooth. So I'm going to get started on that. Okay, so now I'm just putting a coat of polyacrylic onto this frame. Now the splines that we added on the corners are going to greatly strengthen those mitered cuts. So this frame's going to last a while. Now when you're done adding your finish, take your finger and kind of run it around on the inside where you have your groove cut. Because if it beads up and dries, that can affect how the picture goes in there. So just make sure you get any finish that you have here in this groove, get it out of there. Okay, so the polyacrylic is dry. So we're on the tail end of this thing here. So we can move the protective plastic from our acrylic sheet and then put the back on. So the last thing we need to do, we need to put these picture clips on, and we also need to put a sawtooth hanger on. All right, so you notice we have kind of a thin area right here. Now, these screws are actually kind of long for these clips, so I want to make sure that I don't screw it into that area because I feel that it's going to pop out on the other side. So instead of putting the clips back here, I want to make sure I put them right here. So I'm going to hit this meaty area here. Now for the pilot hole, I'm just going to use a scribe and push it in to get the hole started. Then I will put my screw in. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing for the sawtooth hanger. I already have a mark here in the center, so I know it's right in the middle. So I'm going to put that on. Again, I'm going to make sure I'm hitting the meaty area. These screws aren't quite as long, but I just want to be safe. So I'm going to scribe the pilot hole and then put those screws in. And just like that, we've made an 8x10 picture frame. Now, I would recommend, if you plan on doing this process, that you do multiples or more than one. They take a long time to dry, with all the processes with waiting for the miter joints to dry, and then you got to wait for your splines to dry. So doing one takes a long time, but if you can maybe spit out 3 or 4, it'd just be a little bit more feasible. But, if you only need one, just make one. That's fine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. So until next time, keep it safe.